Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Buck. Here. Senator Daly. Here. Senator Hammond. Senator Lang. Here. Senator Pazina. Senator Scheibel. Here. Senator Stone. Here. Chair Spearman.
Here. I'd like to welcome everyone who is here with us in Carson City and those who are joining us in Las Vegas, as well as those who are joining us on the phone. A couple of housekeeping items. Please, ma'am, please, sir, if you got one of these, if it looks like this, kind of like this, even if it's a picture of this, please make sure that you turn it off so that it doesn't go off during the testimony. These meetings can be viewed in several different ways, here in person, telephonically, of course, in Las Vegas, submitting written comment or sharing your opinion on Nellis's legislature application. Anyone wishing to testify should sign in at the table and leave a card with the secretary if you have one. Any exhibits that are to be presented today should have been submitted no later than 8 o'clock on yesterday. When you testify, this is very important. Please, please, please put the mic as close as you can to you and speak clearly and project your voice. We have people listening to these proceedings on the internet, and sometimes people don't have a Bose speaker, and if you don't speak clearly and loudly, then they can't hear. So turn your microphone on, project your voice. When you finish testifying, please turn your microphone off. And pursuant to NRS 218E.085, it is unlawful for any person to knowingly misrepresent facts when testifying before a legislative committee. A person who knowingly does so is guilty of a misdemeanor. In addition, both the chair or any member of the committee may ask for the testifier to submit documentation supporting their testimony. All committee-related information is available on Nellis, which is accessible on the legislature's website. And finally, again, please, ma'am, please, sir, turn all of your electronic equipment off. By way of a disclaimer, I'd like to say this is Military and Veterans Appreciation Day here at the legislature, and so I am in uniform today. This is the uniform that I wore before I retired, but all of my statements and my opinions are my own and do not necessarily reflect anything that the Department of Defense would endorse, or the U.S. Army would endorse, or the U.S. Army Military Police would endorse. Just need to make that clear. This is just a way for all of us to say to each other, those of us who have served, to say thank you for your service. Also, I'm not sure that a lot of people realize it, but after 1975, anyone who served because they desired to, because conscription was over after the middle of 1975. So if you see anyone walking around the building today that has a hat on or anything that reflects their service, anyone after 1975 was not drafted. We volunteered to go and serve our country, and by extension to serve you. So this is me. This has nothing whatsoever to do with the military, except I'm glad that I served almost 30 years in the U.S. Army. So thank you all for that. And with that, let's get started on our, we've got one bill today, Senate Bill 163. The measure requires certain health insurance to cover treatment of certain conditions relating to gender dysphoria, gender incongruence, and other disorders of sexual development. And that will be presented to us today by Senator Scheibel. So Senator Scheibel and the persons who are with you, please go to the witness table and begin when you are ready. I see some people down south. Are they with you? They are. Okay, all right. See some people down south, and I know you have some people on the telephone.
Yes, thank you, Chair Spearman. And to that end, I am coordinating with some of our presenters on the phone and in Las Vegas, so I'm texting them. I'm not doing something else on my phone right now. This is the most important thing that I am doing today, and maybe the most important thing that I will do this session. For the record, my name is Melanie Scheibel. I'm the state senator for District 9, and today I'm here to present SB 163. It requires certain public and private health insurers to cover medically necessary gender-affirming treatments without discrimination. It's my pleasure to introduce this important measure once again. During the 81st legislative session in 2021, I sponsored SB 139, which was amended and passed out of this committee, the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, and was referred to the Senate Committee on Finance, where it was never scheduled for a hearing. I'm pleased to be joined today with Brooke Malath, who's representing herself this morning, as well as Andre Wade and Elsie Rappert from Silver State Equality, Down south, I believe we are also joined by Cy Burnaby from Gender Justice and Rob Phoenix, a healthcare provider in the Las Vegas area. By phone, we will be joined by Ebony Harper and Evan Minton, two subject matter experts. And with that, I'd like to get into a little bit of background on the bill and walk you through it. By way of background, gender dysphoria, gender incongruence, and similar issues are complex conditions that can cause significant distress and impairment in an individual's life. Gender dysphoria is a condition in which an individual experiences discomfort or distress due to a mismatch between their gender identity and their assigned gender at birth. Gender incongruence refers to a condition in which an individual experiences a mismatch between their gender identity and their physical sex characteristics. This can include a desire to live as a gender other than the one assigned at birth and may lead to feelings of distress and discomfort. People with these conditions may experience anxiety, depression, social isolation, and may seek medical treatment to alleviate their symptoms, such as hormone therapy, gender-affirming surgeries to align their physical appearance with their gender identity, and other similar treatment. It is important for insurance providers to cover medically necessary treatments for these conditions because they can have a significant impact on a person's health, including their mental health and quality of life. For example, multiple studies have suggested that transgender people who begin hormone therapy as teens experience lower rates of suicidality and depression. Further, the Trevor Project's 2022 National Survey on LGBTQ mental health found that 45%, nearly half of LGBTQIA+ youth, seriously considered attempting to kill themselves in the past year. Those who felt socially supported by their family and community were half as likely to attempt suicide. SB 163 does not change the law surrounding minors' consent to medical treatments. NRS 129.010 governs the areas in which people under the age of 18 can consent to medical treatment with a parent's consent, and the treatments covered by this bill, without a parent's consent, and the treatments covered by this bill are not included in NRS 129.101 to 060. To put it more plainly, this bill does not allow minors to access gender-affirming care without parental consent. In fact, it allows insurance companies to require minors to undergo more extensive processes than adults to access the same types of treatment. Without insurance coverage for these treatments, many people may be unable to access the care that they need to manage their condition and improve their quality of life. This can lead to increased health risks and reduced well-being, as well as economic burdens from out-of-pocket expenses. It is worth noting that gender dysphoria and gender incongruence are recognized as medical conditions by major medical organizations such as the World Health Organization and the American Medical Association. As such, denying coverage for the treatment of these conditions can be seen as discriminatory and a violation of an individual's right to access health care. Section 1557 of the Federal Affordable Care Act, also known as the ACA, and the associated regulation, 45 Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, Part 92, prohibit discrimination in healthcare based on race, color, national origin, age, disability, or sex, including gender identity, in certain health programs and activities. This regulation provides that excluding coverage for specific health services, such as those related to gender transition, are unlawful because they discriminate based on sex. Unfortunately, several states have acted as barriers to the enforcement of this regulatory provision, citing that the provisions of Section 1557 of the ACA do not prohibit discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. As the federal landscape remains vulnerable to change, it is incumbent upon us, as Nevada legislators, to ensure that our constituents will continue to have the legal protections and law that are currently in place through the patchwork of federal law, federal regulation, and court decisions. Notably, in Bulletin Number 15-002, during Brian Sandoval's tenure as governor, the Department of Business and Industry, Division of Insurance found that denying these healthcare coverages was discriminatory. It's my understanding that we're unable to upload the bulletin to Nellis due to current copyright issues, but I do have copies of it available for members of the committee and would be happy to provide it to anybody else who desires it. And I want to quote from it. Medically necessary healthcare services that are provided to some covered persons cannot be excluded for other covered persons on the basis of gender, identity, or expression. That is from the Nevada Division of Insurance. medically necessary healthcare services cannot be denied based on the gender or identity or expression of the person seeking the coverage. The Division of Insurance cites to NRS 651.070 and the Nevada Administrative Code 86A.140 subsection 7 to support this interpretation of the law. The Legislative Counsel Bureau came to a similar conclusion in a 2015 letter stating, "It is our opinion that a court would likely conclude that an exclusion in an employer-provided health insurance plan which categorically denies coverage for any procedure or treatment related to gender transition violates NRS 613.330 because it would discriminate against employees who are transgender by providing less inclusive benefits to these employees than employees who are not transgender. Lastly, it is the opinion of this office that an employer-provided health insurance plan cannot categorically exclude all procedures or treatments related to gender transition as not medically necessary, cosmetic, or experimental." In other words, the current law already requires health plans to cover these treatments and procedures. This bill solidifies that requirement and ensures that it remains the state of the law, even in the face of changing federal laws and regulations. Before I walk through the bill, I want to prepare you for the type of testimony you're going to hear today. I am here bringing this bill before you because it is the right thing to do. Seeking and receiving, or being denied, the types of gender-affirming care covered by this bill is not my lived experience. Few people with that lived experience have historically had access to the bodies like this one that have the power to change how they are treated in legal and medical settings. Part of my job as a legislator is to act as a bridge that allows people who have these experience and struggle firsthand to share their stories with the halls of power like the Nevada Legislature. So you will hear today from Nevadans who have struggled personally to receive medically necessary interventions that would allow them to live life and flourish in their own bodies in ways consistent with who they are at their core. You'll hear from their parents, spouses, and other family members about the strife caused by denial of gender-affirming care and the joy they've experienced when they've been able to access proper care. I will let them speak to the importance of this policy proposal, and I will be happy to comment on the mechanics of the bill, the legal aspects of such a policy change, and field any questions from members of this committee. I'd also like to note that it is currently Children's Week in the Nevada Legislature. And as such, we have a number of pediatricians with us today, and I know that we also have Nevada youth joining us virtually and maybe even by phone. To that end, I'd like to remind everybody that, in other words, children are listening to this hearing. And as we continue to discuss medically necessary care for both children and adults, I think that it's important that we recognize that we all share a common goal of supporting, loving, and uplifting the children of Nevada. So even if we disagree on policy, and even if we have questions about the intricacies of my bill, we should never, ever let that be clouded by hate or intolerance, or let any child who literally, actually, not theoretically, but maybe listening to this hearing, feel that they are anything less than important, valued, and protected by members of this body. And so with that, I will take the time to walk through the bill, along with the proposed amendment. With the proposed amendment, which has been uploaded to Nellis, SB 163, the bill prohibits certain public and private insurers from discrimination with respect to participation and coverage under the policy, contract, plan, or agreement against any person based on actual gender identity or perceived gender identity. Included in the amendment are a list of actions that would constitute discrimination. Health insurers are also prohibited from applying categorical, cosmetic, or blanket exclusions to gender-affirming treatments or procedures, or any combination of services or procedures or revisions to prior treatments when determined to be medically necessary, unless the policy, contract, plan, or agreement also provides coverage for those services when the services are not offered for purposes other than gender transition. Health insurers are required to evaluate whether services indicated as medically necessary under the most recent version of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health Standards of Care should be included for treatment of gender dysphoria. The services may include those provided by endocrinologists, pediatric endocrinologists, social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists, gynecologists, plastic surgeons, voice therapists, primary care physicians, advanced practice registered nurses, physician's assistants, and any other provider of medically necessary care. In addition, the bill authorizes health insurers to include additional requirements that must be satisfied before the insurer will cover surgical treatment of gender dysphoria or gender incongruence in a patient under 17 years of age. That's Section 4 of the bill, which indicates that an insurance company has the option to implement additional requirements, including but not limited to requiring the treatment be recommended by a psychologist, psychiatrist, or other mental health professional, requiring that the treatment must be recommended by a physician, requiring that the insured youth provide a written expression of the desire to undergo the treatment, and a requirement that a written plan that covers at least 1 year of care be developed by 2 medical professionals. I believe it's Section 5 of the bill requires that an insurer make reasonable efforts to ensure that the benefits required by this bill are made available. In other words, insurance companies can't simply exclude all of these providers from their network in order to avoid covering these services. Likewise, if the insurer is unable to provide coverage, they'll be required to cover the benefit through a provider of healthcare who does not participate in the plan. Finally, in the event that an appeal claim is denied based on medical necessity of the treatment, such an appeal will be decided in a manner consistent with current law and also include consultation with the healthcare provider who's experienced in prescribing and delivering gender-affirming care. Finally, the bill requires that policies of health insurance renewed on or after July 1st of this year, 2023, include such coverage for medically necessary treatment of conditions related to gender dysphoria and gender incongruence. This concludes my portion of the presentation, but as I promised you, I have a number of people here with lived experience in this area, as well as subject matter experts, who I would like to have the opportunity to help explain to you the importance of covering this kind of care. And with that, I will turn it over to Brooke Malath.
Thank you, Senator Scheibel, and thank you for the opportunity, Chair Spearman and committee members. My name is Brooke Malath. In full disclosure, I am an employee of the state of Nevada. Having a little trouble this morning, haven't had enough coffee. Specifically, in the Department of Health and Human Services. I am here speaking only for myself, and my statements here today are in no way representative of the state or any organization. Let's focus on the fact that this bill is strictly about access to health care and how third-party payers cover medically necessary health care treatments. The third-party payers which this bill addresses include standard health insurance plans, self-funded plans, and their third-party administrators, and Medicaid. This bill is about ensuring that transgender Nevadans have meaningful, unencumbered access to medically necessary health care. Research and clinical experience evidence show that transgender health care is effective, safe, and medically necessary for the treatment of gender dysphoria. Unfortunately, many health plans, or to use the insurance or the industry term, third-party payers, have plans which exclude some treatments which are proven helpful for transgender and gender-diverse people. These exclusions are harmful to transgender people and have consequences for public health. When a person cannot access the health care for which they need, other types of health maintenance is avoided, increasing the likelihood of the development of chronic diseases such as heart conditions, diabetes, and cancer, all of which create higher costs to treat than gender-affirming treatments. I have provided the committee, through the senator, statements from medical associations supporting the coverage of medically necessary gender-affirming treatments for transgender people who have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Some types of gender-affirming treatments are already being covered in many plans by third-party payers. However, certain treatments are often excluded from coverage by the administrative trick of declaring those treatments as cosmetic and therefore not medically necessary. But those treatments are specifically necessary to treat gender dysphoria for some people. Such exclusions of these treatments are medically unsupported and discriminatory. Exclusions of treatments which treat gender dysphoria in transgender people is deemed discriminatory in the material submitted to this committee, as Senator Scheibel has just described. Additional supporting material backing the third-party healthcare coverage for medical treatments for people with gender dysphoria include peer-reviewed medical articles, and there is a list in the footnotes in the testimony that I've provided everyone. In September of 2022, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, or WPATH, published the Standards of Care, or SOC, version 8. These standards are the pinnacle of decades of understanding of medical science and treatments for people with gender dysphoria, treatments with proven life-affirming results. These standards are in no way experimental or cosmetic. It is important to recognize this body of work as reliable, accurate, and robust. We acknowledge there is rhetoric in the public discourse which runs counter to the information which has been provided to this committee. Such rhetoric lacks peer review, fails to use ethical medical protocols, and is best described as balderdash. Unfortunately, this intentional misinformation has been picked up by a small portion of our citizenry that has been duped into repeating these falsehoods. Please use discretion when weighing the facts against the fury. Next, let's take a look at the evidence of insurance companies already beginning to address the fact of the medical necessity of these gender-affirming treatments in the form of medical policies. And I've provided the model policies from Cigna, United Healthcare, Molina Healthcare, and the Nevada Public Employees Benefit Program for the upcoming benefit year that all cover these types of procedures. They've dropped all of those exclusionary types of language. The evidence is clear. Excluding treatments which are medically necessary to treat gender dysphoria is discriminatory. Insurance companies are beginning to understand that exclusions are costing them far more in legal costs to defend and in behavioral costs to spend than the cost of a modest number of additional claims which provide immense relief to those with gender dysphoria. By ensuring appropriate coverage of gender-affirming treatments through an appropriate medical pathway, there is no competitive disadvantage for any plan. Transgender people can access the treatments that they are in need of and are paying for. Unifying the review process under the WPATH Standards of Care uses a current state of medical need and understanding of necessity, as well as protocols of how patients are diagnosed and treated, thus creating an open process for the understanding of both the third-party payers and for patients. Navigating healthcare is hard enough, and the lack of enough local providers, not to mention network providers, makes it even more difficult. I would like the opportunity to hear from a direct provider of care, Rob Phoenix, who is down and ready at the microphone in Las Vegas. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Spearman and members of the committee, Senator Scheibel. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. My name is John Phoenix, Phoenix. My preferred name is Rob, and I do not have a pronoun preference. I am here today representing the patients of the Huntridge Family Clinic. Huntridge Family Clinic is the largest gender-affirming care clinic in Nevada. We currently provide primary and specialty care to over 1,000 persons who are gender non-conforming. Our practice focuses on the LGBTQ+ community of Southern Nevada. The clinic has provided care for 10 years in Las Vegas. Our clinic's mission has always been to provide care to those who need it, regardless of who they are or how they can pay. All the services the clinic offers today are based on the needs and requests from our community. The clinic provides care utilizing a harm reduction approach, meaning that we work with our patients to make healthier choices so that they can improve their health outcomes and reduce chances of undesirable outcomes. SB 163 represents a significant opportunity to improve the health care of thousands of Nevadans. The bill will help to improve access to medically necessary care that has been unreachable for many Nevadans. I could spend hours sharing examples of the ways patients have tried to receive medically necessary trans care, such as performing their own orchiectomy in a parking lot because that's what they felt they needed to do, or allowing themselves to be injected with silicone from the car wash or from the auto dealer, or baby oil because they felt they needed the feminization appearance that society requires of us. In 2020 and 2021, we started to be able to access gender-affirming surgery coverage here in Nevada. Trans women could get their chest feminization surgeries through insurance, but the insurance does not pay for the hair removal that's necessary in many of those cases, forcing patients to pay out of pocket, which is a cost prohibitive. This still occurs today. Trans men can get their phalloplasty, which is the creation of a penis, surgery covered. Still, they can't get the hair removal necessary, so they have hair growing inside the shaft of that phalloplasty. Access to medications has dramatically improved in the 10 years I've been doing this care. However, access for adolescents needing access to hormone suppression medications such as Lupron must go through exhaustive processes with their insurance to get this medication approved. However, if they experience a medical condition called precocious puberty, where they are developing secondary sex characteristics too early, like breast development or onset of menses, this medication is readily available for them. I can go on for hours with example after example of the disparities of health equities that gender nonconforming persons experience with respect to their medical conditions and access to medical care. According to the Trans Pop Circulation for 2020, trans persons were more likely to avoid health care due to cost and more often reported their health as fair or poor, with more frequently occurring poor physical and mental health days compared to cisgender people. They also document conditions such as HIV, emphysema, liver disease, sleep disorders, and ulcers are higher among transgender people. Turbin and Associates reported in the Journal of Pediatrics in February 2020 on the association between lack of access to puberty suppression in adolescents with increased risk of lifetime suicidal ideation among transgender adults. Their article and study supported past literature supporting that pubertal suppression for trans adolescents who want this treatment is associated with favorable mental health outcomes. Clark and Associates published in the Journal of Pediatrics in 2022 that sexual and gender minority adolescents experience worse mental health than their non-sexual and gender minority peers. They also report that sexual and gender minority adolescents represent 20% of the incarcerated adolescents compared to only 7 to 9% of the general population. In addition, more than 1/3 of sexual and gender minority adolescents attempted suicide in the past year, compared to 6% of their non-SGM adolescent peers. An overwhelming amount of literature supports access to gender-affirming care and the decreased risk of suicide ideation and attempts in adults and adolescents. Health outcomes improve when people get access to medical care. This bill supports that access and will provide improved outcomes for all Nevadans, trans-identified individuals, and this will have a cost benefit due to decreased mental health costs attributable to lack of care. When considering this bill as it moves forward, think of all the Rosas, the Jasons, the Lauras, the Amandas, and the impact this bill will have on their health. Of course, the opposition will have many opinions about why this bill is wrong. Still, those opinions are only that, and they don't represent the science that documents the tremendous success that we know is possible when people have access to medical care. And I have submitted all of my articles that I referenced in my testimony through Senator Scheibel's office. And I would like to turn it over to Cy Burnaby.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Scheibel, for introducing this bill, to Brooke, to Rob, to all of the partnering organizations who've helped mobilize, and to all of the incredible community members, to the trans, to non-binary, to the gender non-conforming folks, their family, their spouses, for standing up for trans health care today. They are strong, they are proud, they are resilient, and they are ready to stand up for what is right. My name is Cy Burnaby. I am the Executive Director of Gender Justice Nevada. I am also a proud transgender Nevadan. I thank you for giving me the time to talk about my personal journey with gender-affirming healthcare. I've known since I was a very young child that I was different, and that I wasn't the little girl that people said I was. I was a tomboy, I was gender nonconforming, and a few years ago I started socially and medically transitioning. This journey hasn't been easy or simple. It took a lot of conversations with friends, family, doctors, and therapists. Like millions of Americans, I did not have health insurance at the time. And I didn't want to wait until I did, because I knew that every day that went by, my dysphoria, also known as incongruence, would grow, and along with that, my depression. Like many LGBTQ+ people, I've struggled with self-worth, resorted to substance abuse, and tried to harm myself. Not because of who I am, but how the world treats me and treats people in our community. It has been hard for me to access life-saving care and surgery, and I know that my dysphoria has added to that feeling of unworthiness and low self-esteem. It seems a given that health insurance carriers would cover medically necessary health care treatments, but that is not the case. Even if I had health care coverage at the time, I knew, because I'd heard countless stories from trans friends who have had to go through endless, unnecessary hoops and denial from their insurance that exist for those of us who simply want to feel confident in our own bodies. I knew I'd have to do so many things to maybe get the top surgery covered. I'd have to explain my trauma to various doctors and therapists. I'd have to prove that I deserve the procedure and that it is indeed intrinsically tied to my mental health. And even if I did all of those things, there was still a very real possibility that if I had insurance, it wouldn't cover it. These unnecessary exclusions are harmful to our trans and non-binary community, and there are very real consequences. So I paid out of pocket, almost $10,000. I saved up every penny I had and sacrificed my own financial security. If the process would have been simpler, I would have waited for the health insurance, but I knew it was full of barriers, so I didn't. For those of us with gender dysphoria, these procedures are life-saving, and the wait is torturous. After I woke up from top surgery, which is a removal of the breast tissue, I looked down at my chest, and I immediately cried tears of joy, because I knew that finally, after 40 years, I was in the body that matched who I was. Every day since, I have walked with pride and confidence. I've been working out, and I don't wear baggy clothes anymore. I don't hide the parts of me that caused such agony for so many years. I don't have to endure the pain of using ace bandages which left welts on my skin, or a binder that made it difficult for me to breathe. I am now living happily and authentically, and I only wish that all of my trans siblings were able to access this kind of life-saving care easily and without unnecessary barriers so that they can thrive like I do now. I realize that our journey as trans people is not one that others can understand easily, but it's not just about one person. It's about thousands of trans Nevadans. We are people like you who have jobs and families, pay taxes, and genuinely want to be a vital part of society like everyone else. We're human beings, and we deserve health care that reflects that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chair Spearman, I also have Ebony Harper on the phone, if you would allow her to testify.
Yeah, and just before we go to the phone, if those of you, Zai and Rob, if you all can spell your names, please, so we can make sure we've got them in the record correctly.
John Phoenix, Phoenix.
Cy Burnaby, SYBERNABEI.
Thank you. Please continue.
All right. If you would allow Ebony Harper to testify, I believe that she is on the phone.
VPS, I think they're on the phone.
Callers, if you are Ebony Harper, if you could please press *9 now. Place yourself in the queue. Stand by. We have her right here, Chair. We'll unmute now.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We hear you. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ebony Ava Harper. I am the Executive Director of California Transcends. I sit on the board of the Trans Law Center. I sit on the board of the California Transgender Advisory Council. I am the co-chair along with Evan Minton. I sit on the board of Borealis, Philanthropy, and Mirror Memoirs. But I am not here in my official capacities. I am here as a subject matter expert from both lived experience and my national organizing work. So I came out in 1992, over 30 years ago. So I have a lot of lived experience as far as being trans and seeing the dark ages, as someone just testified, of transgender folks trying to get health coverage. So first of all, I'd like to thank the Nevada Legislature for passing 3 non-discrimination bills for transgender people that protects us in employment, housing, and public accommodation based on gender identity or expression. And you guys have become the 14th state with clear protections for transgender identities in statewide non-discrimination laws. So I think that needs to be applauded, and I appreciate your legislature for seeing us as a group that needs to be protected, especially given the hate that's coming from other groups. So we appreciate you and your governor for seeing us as a group that needs to be protected. Like I said, I came out in 1992, and when I came out, trans folks were having surgeries in hotel rooms. And a lot of people from the days that I came out are now maimed, died of liver damage because they were getting black market hormones. And it was just a horrible time. And that lasted up until Affordable Care Act, when Obama administration listed trans folks as a group of people that should be covered as far as healthcare coverage. And actually, just listing us in Affordable Care Act had a domino effect, and kind of was the catalyst to trans folks getting protection in housing, getting protection in employment, and other sectors. And so you see us in a better position, even though, you know, there's a lot more work to do. You see people like me that have gone back to school and getting degrees and doctorates, where we weren't able to in the past. And that all came from the Obama administration explicitly listing trans folks as a group in healthcare. So I am honored that you guys, you know, asked me to speak this morning, because this is very important. This bill is so important. It's a matter of life and death, and I'm just honored, and thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If we could hear from Evan Minton next.
BPS, can you cue up Evan Minton, please?
Yes, Chair, we can. Evan Minton, If you are on the line, if you could please press *9 now. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can anyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi. Okay, great. Hi, my name's Marshall Delbeck. I live in Reno, Nevada. I'm a trans
Hello.
wrong person.
Yeah,
locally
BPS.
here.
BPS. Hello, excuse me. BPS, we're looking for Evan Minton. We're not in public testimony yet. So Evan Minton should be on the line. So the person is speaking now. If you can just wait until we get to public testimony. Okay?
Thank you, Chair. We will queue up one more time.
Hi, this is Evan Minton. I serve as an expert congressional witness on LGBTQ plus issues, and I'm considered a national expert on these matters. I also sit on national boards on transgender issues as well. Additionally, I was a plaintiff in a lawsuit on a similar matter when Dignity Health denied me gender-affirming health care. My lawyers were the ACLU and Covington Burling, which is the former Attorney General under President Obama's Eric Holder's law firm. The case went to the United States Supreme Court, and my rights were upheld. Before any health insurance company may tell you that they can't afford to abide by this law, I can assure you that these same health insurance companies are providing this care in California and have been for years, and their profits are thriving. Additionally, every major medical association recommends gender-affirming care for people experiencing gender dysphoria, both youth and adults, because for those who need it, gender-affirming care saves lives. Unfortunately, without health insurance, gender-affirming health care is out of reach for way too many. And that is because, due to societal discrimination, a disproportionate amount of the transgender community lives in poverty. SB 163 will allow the medical field, the patient, and sometimes the patient's family, when it's youth, to be in charge of the patient's health care, as they should be, not health insurance companies. This bill is life-saving. The International Trans Day of Visibility is coming up, and I urge you to support this bill and celebrate alongside us, and thank you for the protections that you have given the transgender community so far. You're truly saving lives when you vote yes for this important bill. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. Senator Scheibel?
That concludes our presentation of the bill, and I am happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Okay, we'll go to committee questions now. And committee, I will ask if you will do this favor. If you've got 3 questions, please ask your first one, and let's make the round table, and then we'll come back at the end of the hearing and get the rest of the questions, okay? So committee, any questions? Senator Daly?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for the presentation. Learned a few things, so that's good. So one question, I actually had another one based on your amendment. So you mentioned the W path as it recognized. So one of my questions was on the medical review or medical necessity, and I know there's medical review boards and various things. So are those, because most insurance companies that I know of, they use a third-party vendor if there's a dispute to get the medical necessity. So have those agencies adopted or they recognize the W path when they're making those determinations on necessity or not yet, or is it a mixed bag across the country when you're reviewing the medical necessity part?
Melanie Scheibel for the record, and one of the other presenters may be able to answer more specifically, but I do know that the W path is the leading authority on the best possible care for transgender individuals. And so those companies, those insurers, those third parties that do recognize the need for gender affirming care utilize the W path to determine what would be considered medically necessary, which procedures and treatments are considered proven, are considered effective, safe, things like that. And so that's the reason for citing to the W path. And so another way to answer your question, I think, would be to say that, yes, it is very common to utilize the W path. It is not an outlier. I can't say that every single insurer or third party does utilize it, and I don't know if anybody else is able to speak to that, but it is the premier and common set of guidelines for determining what kind of care is medically necessary.
I can just follow up very quickly, Madam Chair. Because in the testimony, the whole thing is going to come down to medical necessity and then all the exclusions on cosmetic and the various things. And I was just curious with the W path, which is a new term for me, right? If those things are accepted, they're standard, they're recognized nationally, I think that's a big hurdle if it is. And if not, then you probably still have some more work to go. But at least there's a path there because, like I say, people are going to say you got the cosmetic and various things. So I was just trying to understand and see that. I know I got other questions. I can either bring them up later or if we get time, I'll ask them. But thank you for that part.
Thank you. Additional questions? Senator Stone?
Thank you, Senator, for your presentation. It was very educational for me. My question is with regard to puberty blocking drugs. It was just an article that was just printed in the American College of Cardiology last month that said that people with gender dysphoria using hormones have 7 times the risk of stroke and nearly 6 times the risk of a heart attack or risk of pulmonary embolism. So if a physician is writing for these prescriptions, and I don't know if these indications are FDA approved for the hormones, I'd like to know that, but if they do prescribe these medications and the patient either has one of these, gets one of these conditions or passes away, God forbid, who is going to be liable?
Melanie Scheibel, for the record, this bill wouldn't change the implications of liability for any kind of medical malpractice or any kind of medical accident. In a case where somebody is injured by the use of a drug, there are laws and there are policies that govern those kinds of cases, and this would not have any effect on that. I think that I'd also like to kick it to Rob in Las Vegas to speak a little bit to the process that a provider goes through in working with the patient to determine whether or not the risks of complications from taking a puberty blocker specifically are present for that particular patient and how they weigh those in determining whether or not to prescribe them, if you'd allow Rob to testify or to follow up.
Thank you, Senator Stone, for the question. So hormone suppression medications actually impact the pituitary gland, and they basically, for lack of a better word, kind of overwhelm it with, what do I do? Should I do this hormone? Should I do this hormone? Not this one, not this one. And it basically allows the adolescent to put the pause on the development of their secondary sex characteristics. So it's akin to watching a movie and hitting the pause button. You can come back to it. It picks up right where it was. It allows the adolescents some additional time for processing, for affirming that this is the person that they are, and those types of things. As far as estrogens and hormones with respect to blood clots, I haven't seen that article, and I apologize for not being aware of that article, but traditionally, the hormones that have been used in many of the studies looking at gender transition have not been the hormones that we currently use. They've been more birth control-related agents, such as Premarin, and the other agents for birth control that we do not use in gender transition hormones. We use estradiol, which is a different compound, a different formulation, and it has a risk that is actually lower than a cisgender woman taking birth control for her blood clots for her person, or if she's a smoker and taking birth control medications. And these are things that are identified and spelled out in the WPATH guidelines. So the WPATH guidelines very clearly address risk and concerns around medication choices. And as part of that process with a patient, when they're coming in for their consultations, these are things that we're discussing with the patients. You have a risk of a heart attack and stroke just because you have diabetes. You have a risk for heart attack and stroke because you have high blood pressure. If you have these other medications, that may potentially change that risk. So we have these conversations through what's called an informed consent process. So we talk about the side effects, we talk about the benefits, and it's a shared decision-making process where patients and the providers talk about what are the benefits of this, what are the risks, and then we make a joint decision about what is the best way for you to proceed with your gender-affirming hormones. Thank you.
If I can just follow up real
Follow
fast.
up.
Yeah, Rob, thank you very much for that testimony, and you brought up a good point about using a Premarin versus an estradiol. So an estradiol is what we call a bioidentical estrogen, where Premarin is basically derived from horse urine. It's actually horse estrogens that are injected into humans, which I've never thought were very, very healthy. But does WPAC make any reference to the utilization of bioidentical hormone treatment therapy? In other words, testosterone, not testosterone cypionate, which is manufactured, but hormones that mimic the hormones that the body naturally produces.
So this is Rob Phoenix for the record. So WPATH does clearly outline in their standards of care which medications they recommend. There's also scientific support for the choices of those medications. And one of the things that we try very hard to do in gender-affirming care is debunk all the nonsense and all the misinformation that is in the community. For example, using higher doses of estrogens. That's where risk comes in. So there are guidelines within the WPATH on what your target estrogens should be, what your target testosterone should be, what medications you should use, what medications we should avoid, and reasons why we should be avoiding those medications. Because at the end of the day, this is a harm reduction strategy, because if we don't help people with medically necessary and affirming care, they will find it elsewhere. I have patients that come into my office all the time who are buying estrogen and testosterone off of the street. People get silicone injections, and it could be the stuff that's at the car dealer and it's going into your leg instead of into the tire. So people will do desperate things to get the medically necessary care. But back to the question, yes, there are recommendations in the guidelines around which medications to use for specific gendered persons.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional questions, committee members? Senator Buck?
Thank you so much for your testimony. Do minors need parental approval? And then, so how does that work with the mandatory you have to be 26 years old?
Melanie Scheibel for the record. So NRS 129.010 to 060 is the statute that exempts certain procedures from requiring the consent of a parent in order for a minor to access those procedures. None of these are included in those exemptions. So in short, a parent would still have to consent to a minor receiving these medications, just like they have to consent if you're going to put a minor on an allergy medication, or if a minor has diabetes and you want to manage it with insulin, the parent has to be part of that conversation. The same thing would apply here, that the parent has to be part of the conversation before we are prescribing hormone therapy, before we're approving any kinds of medical treatments or surgical interventions for a minor. And I think you're referencing, the minors or the person's ability to stay on their parents' insurance until they turn 26. And so, again, just like if that person had diabetes and wanted to manage it with insulin, or if that person were, very sadly diagnosed with cancer at a very young age, by the time they turn 19, they are able to make those decisions on their own, even though they aren't the insured. Our law does not allow, if I'm the person who's insured and my 20-year-old son is on my insurance, I'm not allowed to intervene and tell the doctor not to provide my son with certain care just because I'm the person on the insurance. And that is true for gender-affirming care, as it is for cancer care, as it is for any other medical condition or type of medical health care.
Additional questions? Okay. I'm not so sure this is a question, but just an observation. One of the things that happened to me while I was in the military is I got stuff in my lungs, and I have to take breathing treatments, and there's side effects that are, and I've had several different options there. And I'm noticing that when you look on TV, and they have these medications, and they show people playing tennis and climbing mountains and running and everything, and then at the very end you have somebody that says, and the side effects are and some of the side effects, you can hear like, heart disease, cancer, that sort of thing. And I was just looking here on the Harvard website and looking at some of the things that ED pills that we don't often talk about, but that's, for some people it's necessary. But they also have side effects. And I think one of the things, the point that I'm trying to make is that the things that we do to make us better, one of the reasons I think that doctors sit down and talk to us before they do a prescription, as well as, and I'm sure Senator Stone probably remembers doing this too, being a pharmacist, when people come in for new medication, you want to make sure that they understand what the doctor has said and understand what the side effects could be. But I very rarely, if ever, have I ever picked up a prescription and someone didn't say, these are the side effects of that. So I just want to be clear that there's side effects to all types of medications and all types of treatments, so we don't look at this one-sided. So, you have anyone else to testify?
I think there are a few people here to give support testimony, but no one else in my presentation.
Okay, so what we will do, so that we don't go interminably long, but I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance, and I'm going to be a stickler for this. 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and if you go over 2 minutes, then I'm going to interrupt you, and you'll probably think I'm a meanie, but there's someone behind you that wants to speak as well. If you do not get a chance to verbally give your testimony, you may submit that in writing, and I'm going to ask that you do it within 24 hours, because if you do it 3 weeks later, then the minutes for those meetings have already been done. So 2 minutes, we will go 15 minutes, and I've asked Mr. Melrejo to remind me when we get to a point so I can move from in-person to those on the phone. 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Please read my lips, 2 minutes. If you go longer, I'm going to interrupt you. And if those of you who are on the phone, if there's a way for us to shut the mic down, we'll do that. But we need everybody to please, please, please pay attention. There are people who have sat on the phone and they want to testify. 2 minutes, okay? So we'll go to support here in Carson City first, and then we'll move down to Las Vegas, and we'll move to the phones after about 10 minutes of testimony, in-person testimony. So start here in Las Vegas, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lexa Baldwin, Lexabaldwin. I'm speaking in representation of myself. For the trans people who need it, transition-related care is anything but cosmetic. This care is gender-confirming and is dramatically beneficial for the safety, protection from discrimination, and mental health of the trans patient. Gender dysphoria is a clinically significant distress, and without proper care can result in damaging and costly mental health consequences. When insurance providers have blanket determinations of this care as being cosmetic, it's discriminatory against trans people. This discrimination is also costly. I'm an employee of the state who happens to also be trans, and I also suffer crippling dysphoria over my face, to the point where many times I can't even put on makeup because I need to look at myself in the mirror. I was a victim of such discrimination, which forced me to fight the state and win for the care that I needed. Although my doctors ruled that facial feminization surgery is medically necessary, as my facial features cause me chronic distress and they frequently out me as trans, which caused me further distress and mental health need. My insurance disregarded the determination of multiple medical professionals. As the public record shows, the resultant fight and then expense for legal fees and damages ultimately costs the state far more than simply paying for the procedure. This is back before PEB changed for the current year plan. The latest of standards outlined by WPATH should be followed as to improve the outcomes for patients. This insurance bill can save money, significantly help the outcomes of trans people, and lead to us having a happier and healthier Nevada. People like me deserve access to medically necessary care just as much as any other Nevadan. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Sherry Scafidi, Sherrie, Scafidi, SCAFFIDI, representing Transgender Allies Group. I am the president of such. Chair Spearman, Vice Chair Lang, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to give my testimony today. Before I go any further, as a Navy veteran, I would like to thank Senator Spearman for her service. Thank you. SB 163 assures that those transgender individuals that require medical intervention pursuant to the requirements of this bill receive the medical care, and the insurer of their policy of health covers the necessary treatment to alleviate their gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria and gender incongruence have devastating consequences on an individual. As someone who became aware that I had gender dysphoria from around the age of 9 until I was finally able to transition at the age of 65 and have breast augmentation at the age of 68, I can tell you that having that surgery was psychologically life-changing. Not every transgender person needs or requires the many surgical options that may be performed. Each transgender person is, like the rest of the population, an individual. Some may only require cross-hormone therapy, while others may need surgical intervention to some degree. I hope that the passage of this bill will help those transgender individuals feel complete and mitigate their feelings of being incomplete. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Leah Case, Leacase, here today on behalf of NAMI, Nevada, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Nevada chapter, and the Nevada Psychiatric Association. There is a support letter online from several resident psychiatrists here in the north. That's been updated since this bill hearing was rescheduled due to the snow day to include several other resident and fellow signatures, 13 total now of practitioners here in northern Nevada. We know that this care is so necessary for the health and overall well-being and mental health care of our neighbors, our siblings, and we just appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go down to Las Vegas now, and then we'll go to the phones, and we'll be back, okay? Las Vegas?
Yes, my name is Rachel, Rachel, Whitted, Whitted. I am a transgender female, which has been denied certain things with insurance, like the hair removal surgery, hair removal products, because the insurance doesn't cover it. And also the issue with the state, as transgender inmates in prison, they basically deny them the opportunity to be able to get it because they say the state has to pay for it. So I'm asking that this bill is created to support that for the hair removal products, and also for the state to be able to pay for people that are in state custody. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Riley Silver, Riley Silver. Good morning. Chairwoman Spearman, thank you for your service. I'm also a veteran, and I appreciate everyone today. Having access to health care is an essential element in any individual's ability to enjoying a solid quality of life. This has been proven time and again, especially over the last 20 years in this country. Finding care can be an extreme challenge in a state that does not have an evenly distributed access to qualified professionals when it comes to even the most routine aspects. When it comes to specialized care such as that which is required for transgender and non-binary populations, this generates an additional level of difficulty. The number of accessible qualified providers is slim in the cities and almost non-existent in the rural areas, which in turn places undue hardships upon the most vulnerable within a population. When you add in the necessity for insurance, the increased opportunity for discrimination arises, not just from potential providers, but from the insurance companies themselves. I've experienced this repeatedly and recently with an insurance company that has utilized any number of delay tactics to intercede with my care. I wish this was an uncommon statement. However, it is not. Increasingly, it is evident across this country measures that would exclude and outright discriminate against this community for political favor. This bill, once passed, would protect against any such unjust behavior. By giving life-saving access to medical, psychological, and therapeutic care, you are agreeing with the science of decades of research that has been presented worldwide by the AMA, APA, WPATH, WHO, AAP, PES, and many other pieces of the alphabet. It has been determined that the state of gender dysphoria is not something a person just gets over through conversion therapy.
Thank you, sir. 2 minutes is
Those
up.
who are
Thank you, sir. Hello. 2 minutes is up. Submit your rest of your testimony, and the information is on the agenda, okay? Thank you. Let's go to the phones now. BPS? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there one more down in Las Vegas? One more that hadn't testified? Okay, yes. I'm trying to do 3 each at the table, so we'll do you, and then we'll go to the phones, okay? And please remember, if someone's already said what you want to say, it's okay to say ditto, so we can get in as many testimonies as we can. So, yes, please continue. In the green?
Good morning. My name is Jamie Lee Sprague-Ballou, Jamielee. Sprague-Ballou is SPRAGUE-BALLOU. I am here in support of SB 163. As a 60-year-old trans female, I am one who, back in 2000, lived 40 years suffering with extreme gender dysphoria, and came out in 2003, which was a weight off my shoulders. But I am one also that approached my health insurance company was when I was employed with the Clark County School District, which was the health plan of Nevada, to pursue obtaining SRS surgery, or known now as gender affirming surgery, and was denied, even though I had mounds of documents showing support of how the surgery was necessary, and denied that medical health care. I was unable to pursue my surgery until I was in seminary in California, and I was able to pursue it through Kaiser Permanente in California, and having my gender-affirming surgery. So to me, this is a critical moment in our state to have this bill passed, and I thank Senator Scheibel for your work and all those who sat in on this bill to adopt it, because of trying to pursue this surgery was costly. Even for the copay for me was costly. It was $7,000 out of my pocket just for the copay. To expect our community to pay out of pocket for gender affirming surgery, those who need it, half of us couldn't afford it because half of
Thank
us
you.
do not
Reverend
have the
Jamie.
employment
Reverend
to
Jamie.
be able to
Reverend
have it.
Jamie.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
2 minutes is up. Thank you. So let's go to the phones. Let's go to the phones. Support those who are on the phones for support.
If you'd like to testify in support of SB 163, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, my name is Najoni Whitehat. For the record, that is spelled Nivhoni. Whitehat is spelled Widehat. And I am the Northern Community Organizer for Native Voters Alliance Nevada. And VAN stands in support for this bill, SB 163. I speak today for myself and those who also identify under the cover term of LGBTQA+, so that we might achieve wholeness and achieve an improved quality of life. Transgender people and other people who identify as LGBTQA+ have always been. Before the creation of the United States, Indigenous communities have had terms and roles for queer people. This is not new. Transgender people are not a growing issue. It is not up to them to be or not to be trans. They have and always will be who they are and a part of this community and a part of our country. This bill will save lives and give the person seeking a gender-affirming care power over their body, which should always be their right. Please support this bill. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Lauren Chapel-Love. That's Lauren, last name Chapple-Love. Thank you, Chair Spearman and the committee for your time and consideration allowing me to speak today. I'm here specifically representing as the president of the Nevada Psychological Association, an organization that is made up of psychologists who are our sole job is to serve communities within our state, and that is to and includes SOGI communities, so sexual orientation and gender identity related communities. So we would like to speak today about the responding support that we wish to offer, or the resounding, rather, support I wish to offer regarding SB 163. As a provider of gender-affirming mental health care, it is commonly understood within professional provider communities that there are significant barriers to gender-diverse folks having access to medically necessary gender-affirming care. Many providers, myself included, have taken to providing pro bono or significantly reduced fee services in attempts to allow Nevadans to have more access to care, because that's our job, right? SB 163 has a wonderful chance here to significantly improve access to medical as well as mental health care in ways that would be far more effective than our current system. Additionally, the following of the already recognized WPATH, or World Professional Association for Transgender Health, policies will likely ensure that Nevada is remaining current with extant peer-reviewed and evidence-based research, as well as policies that are already being utilized. To be clear, this is a harm reduction strategy, and we again would like to thank Senator Scheibel and the other senators responsible for bringing forward SB 163. Thank you.
BPS, anyone else on the phone? Okay, let's come back up to Carson City, and we've got about 7 minutes left in this session. So if anybody has said what you want to say, ditto's good, and submit your testimony within 24 hours so we can make sure it's part of the record. Thank you. So, Carson City.
Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Shane, S-H-A-N-E. I'm a general pediatrician in Reno, here representing myself. I'm here today to support young people who are transgender or gender diverse. We know that the majority of individuals who identify as such realize this before puberty. I, every day see patients who experience and endure the extreme social and psychological toll that this condition puts upon themselves. But I also see and witness the tremendous benefits that individuals who receive respectful, comprehensive, and appropriate care for gender dysphoria can experience. So I'm here today to support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Spearman and members of the committee. My name is Leanne McAllister, Leann McAllister. I am the Executive Director of the Nevada chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. It is critically important that all children feel loved and accepted for who they are. The American Academy of Pediatrics works towards all children and adolescents, regardless of gender identity or expression, receiving care to promote optimal physical, mental, and social well-being. Any discrimination based on gender identity or expression, real or perceived, is damaging to the socioeconomic health of children, families, and society. In particular, the AAP recommends that insurance plans offer coverage for health care that is specific to the needs of youth who identify as transgender and gender diverse, including coverage for medical, psychological, and, when indicated, surgical gender-affirming interventions. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Vordish. I'm an intern with the ACLU of Nevada. I'm here to express support for Senate Bill 163. Although it is not my job to provide public comment like this, I wanted to share some of my story. For many transgender individuals, the biggest barrier in receiving gender-affirming care is a lack of insurance coverage. And for many transgender folks, this is life-saving care. I am a transgender man, and thanks to the sacrifices my mother has made and the support she's given me, I've been lucky enough to receive gender-affirming care since coming out. Our insurance provider was a self-funded plan through her employer, and much like many other insurance providers, it did not cover gender-affirming care. My mom worked for months researching, planning, and attending meetings with her company and the insurance provider to fight for this coverage. Our insurance provider finally agreed to cover my care, but my mom kept pushing to change the policy for everyone. She wanted the provider to be equitable for all. Once she was successful, she stayed working for a company she had outgrown to ensure that I was taken care of, and in fear that her next employer would not cover my care. This process is not an accessible option for transgender individuals in the state. We should not have to find loopholes or submit policy proposals for providers to recognize our humanity and existence. Senate Bill 163 would fix this. I've been blessed to live in a live and let live state like Nevada, which has always been ahead of the curve nationally on LGBTQ+ rights, but the transgender community is keenly aware of ongoing attacks on trans rights across the country. I know we can't take rights for granted, and I urge you to send a message this session that home still means Nevada for our trans and gender nonconforming community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go down to Las Vegas very quickly.
Good
Las
morning,
Vegas.
Chair and members of the committee. Hello.
Please continue.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Shanze Aslam, ASLAM, and I am here on behalf of a community member, Chase Ives. That's CHASEIVES. And I am here to testify in support of SB 163. I'm going to speak on their testimony. When going through the initial process with one of my gender-affirming surgeries, I went through a particular surgeon's office who stated that I only needed 3 things to get a consultation: referral letters from my therapist and my endocrinologist, as well as insurance. Once I provided all of these things, the receptionist at the surgeon's office stated that my insurance was now requiring an additional letter from a psychiatrist, which I knew was not listed in my insurance policy. Still, I received a referral from my therapist to go, and when I called to set up an appointment, the office asked me what the reason for needing an appointment was. I told them I need a referral letter to go to a surgeon's office to receive gender-affirming surgery. The receptionist on the other end cut me off and said, "Okay, so you need medication?" I then felt obligated to explain how long I had been medically transitioning and seeing my therapist. It felt as though I had to out myself to the therapist, and I still did not get an appointment to set up with the psychiatrist, as they told me they could not help me. That experience made me feel anxious, dysphoric, and defeated. I ultimately went with a completely different surgeon who recognized that my insurance did not require that referral letter from a psychiatrist, and they were able to assist me with just the 3 initial documents. It felt like a much safer and simpler process. There are other people who are going through more complicated experiences in seeking gender-affirming healthcare. No one should have to be made to feel the way I was made to feel. No one should have to face this much anxiety and discriminatory behavior when seeking medical care. I urge the committee to pass SB 163. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My legal name is Marcus Ely, Marquis, last name Ely, Eaoy. My chosen name is Max Ely. I haven't been able to legally change it. SB 163 is a necessary step, and I'm grateful for it, but it's only a start. All around the country, bills are being written with the goal of, quote, eradicating my people from public life. Because of that, I'm giving cookies to Democrats for treating us as human. Thank you for writing a bill that allows us basic bodily autonomy. The sad part is, this will only amount to a drop in the very empty bucket that is trans rights. While this is tragic, the fact of the matter is we're getting genocided by America on the way to a fight. What I mean by that metaphor is that demagoguery is always a distraction from a larger issue. In this particular instance, that issue is supply-side economics, and 80 years of perpetual wars hamstrung America's economy. The middle and lower classes continue to bear the brunt for that strain, and transgender people are currently chosen as the scapegoats for violent sub-sophomoric Republican lemmings who refuse to recognize they broke behind is currently getting economically exploited like the rest of us. I am truly terrified for my trans siblings because we are such a small population and not a large enough voting bloc to really make a difference in the halls of power and cannot survive politically without allies. I would like to genuinely thank the authors and sponsors and co-sponsors of this bill. Get it passed and do more. Basic bodily autonomy is a start, but we need to do a lot more, and it's not nearly enough.
Okay, so let's
Hello,
go to.
members of the Senate
Hold on,
Commerce.
hold on, just a minute. Let me go to the phones. I think we've got maybe two more on the phones. And if you don't get a chance to testify, make sure you submit your testimony. And just by way of explanation, one of the things that happens here in Nevada is we meet only every other year for 120 days. And we have a limited time. I wish we met every year, but we don't. And that means that when we go to floor to act on bills and things, there's a limited amount of time. So we got committee meetings in the morning, then we have to go to the floor to address other bills that are there, and then we have committee meetings that start at 1 o'clock. So I'm saying that so that everyone knows that this is not arbitrary. We're trying to make sure that we keep a schedule. One of the ways that I hope that eventually Nevada will fix that is to go to annual sessions. That's just me talking. So we'll go to the phones now. BPS, do we have anyone on the phones for support?
Hello, Senators. My name is Brady McGill. It's BradyMcGill. I'm the president of Las Vegas Pride, and I'm here representing the roughly 90,000 people per month that engage with our organization in a meaningful way through our magazine, our website, and other mediums. We're here in support of this bill. It helps our community, and it helps Nevadans. Thank you very much.
One more call on the phone, and then we've got the last two here up at the table. Let me take one from here and then one from down south, okay? So you all can decide who, one from here, one more on the phone. We have someone else on the phone, BPS?
Yes, we do, Chair. Queuing them up now. Thank you.
Okay. The last one on the phone for right now, and everyone else, please submit your testimony in writing, okay?
Hi, I'm Scott Callahan. First name Scott, S-C-O-T-T. Last name Callahan, C-A-L-L-A-G-H-A-N, from Reno. And I'm calling in support of SB 163. I'll be quick because I think a lot of other people have given great testimony, but it seems pretty straightforward, right? These are medically necessary procedures, and it's appropriate that they be covered by health insurance. We've heard many stories of how if these things are not covered, then essentially we're denying members of the transgender community access to medically recommended care. And it's clear both from many studies that have been done and from testimony today that this leads to a lot of positive outcomes. And fundamentally, this is the point of health insurance, right? It's to cover procedures that are applicable to a small proportion of the community and have tremendously positive outcomes for members of the community. So please, I'm asking you to support SB 163 to make sure that all transgender Nevadans have access to gender-affirming health care. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come back up to Carson City, and then let me take one more down south. Yes.
Good morning, Chair Spearman and members of the committee. My name is Mary Nakashima Nielsen, and I'm representing the Nevada State Medical Association today. We want to thank Senator Scheibel and the members of Silver State Equality for meeting with our members on their initial concern. With the amendment, though, we fully support this measure. Just for committee reference, Dr. Jessica Casey is a urologist in Las Vegas. She was on the phone to testify in support on behalf of additional organizations, but she had to drop due to a scheduled surgery. So we'll submit her comments on behalf of those organizations today.
Thank you. One more down south, and for those of you who are standing by, we'll finish up support, then we'll go to those in opposition and then those neutral, and if we can finish all of that in time, I'll try to come back to an equal amount of time for those in support and an equal amount of time for those in opposition, okay, and neutral. So, Las Vegas?
Good morning. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for your service, and members of the Senate Committee. My name is Jamie Jacobs, and I'm a transgender woman who has been employed with Clark County since 2006. I'm here today representing myself and to share my experience of discrimination with medical insurance and to express my concerns about the discriminatory exclusions in the Clark County self-funded medical plan targeting transgender employees. In October 2019, I submitted a pre-authorization for a medically necessary gender-affirming surgery, which was denied by Clark County. I appealed this decision and was denied at the second level. I then appealed to the third and final level for an external review, according to the plan. In the meantime, I had part of the procedure done in June of 2020. and charged only what I could afford on my credit cards. In January 2021, I won my appeal, and the external review concluded that the procedure was medically necessary and should be covered, overturning the denial. However, on April 21st, 2021, Clark County refused to accept this ruling and deemed it an error. They offered a small payment as means of settling any potential dispute, which only was 17% of what I was entitled to receive. They also made it very clear that this payment was not to be considered a benefit payment under the plan and reported it as taxable income. Later, Clark County claimed to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that the small payment was made in accordance with the provisions of the medical benefits plan, which it was clearly not the case. In April 2021, my pre-authorization for a different medical necessary gender-affirming surgery was denied based on an incorrect opinion that was considered cosmetic surgery. Under the gender reassignment section of the plan, I started the appeal process and had the procedure done, and which again I charged on my credit cards. On October 25th, 2022, I was denied the second level and third level, and then I requested for a third level external review.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
To the plan,
Hello, ma'am. Yeah, it's 2 minutes. Can you submit the rest of your testimony in writing, please? Thank you so much. I'm going to move now to opposition, and for those of you who did not get a chance to testify in this round, again, we're going to try to come back around after we finish opposition and neutral. Thank you all so much for your understanding. Thank you so much for your understanding, and at some point in time, we're going to go to annual sessions, and we'll have a lot longer to address these sorts of issues. Thank you. My own personal opinion. So go opposition, those who are here in Carson City. Opposition, there are 3 seats at the table in Las Vegas. And for those of you who are on the phones, we are in opposition now. So if you are waiting on the phones to testify in opposition, please be ready and aware when BPS calls on you. So Carson City first. 2 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Bob Russo for the record. I oppose Senate Bill 163. Disturbingly, those who are against sex reassignment treatments for minors will be required, if this bill passes, to contribute to them through taxation to cover the cost of Medicaid. What a youth wants today is not always what they will want 5, 10, or 15 years from now, or what is in their best interest. Marriage and family therapist Stephanie Wynn, in a recent Epoch Times interview, claims that, quote, a variety of mental health conditions are being subsumed under this gender dysphoria umbrella. We're not looking at what's really going on and why they're feeling so much distress in the first place, end of quote. She says that a better option may be to help kids deal with their traumas and just wait to see if they outgrow their gender dysphoria. And from what I understand, that is often the case. She also mentions that puberty blockers impair brain development and reduce bone density, which puts young people and children at greater risk for osteoporosis. And according to endocrinologist Michael Laidlaw, cross-section hormones carry side effects, including sterility, an increased risk for breast and uterine cancers, plus harmful psychoactive effects such as mood swings and psychosis. We could have a generation of young people growing up with chronic illnesses and depression and the inability to live productive and fulfilling lives. At the very least, a minimum age of 21 should be required before gender dysphoria treatments can be given. Please oppose SB 163. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair and Committee, my name is Lynn Chapman, and I'm the State Treasurer of the Independent American Party. The Independent American Party's platform includes a section on family-friendly, quote, to strengthen the traditional family without government interference or regulation, unquote. The parents are the people who care the most about the well-being and happiness of their children. They are their children's protectors against dangerous situations and even dangerous people. Quote, our decisions establish that the Constitution protects the sanctity of the family precisely because the institution of the family is deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition. It is through the family that we inculcate and pass down many of our most cherished values, moral and cultural, unquote. Moore versus East Cleveland, 431 U.S. 949, 1977. American hospitals have large financial incentives to carry out all of these procedures. In the United States, the sex reassignment surgery market is set to reach a market value of more than $1.5 billion by 2026. Some operations cost up to $53,700. Performing 50 of these a year brings in $2.7 million. Watch out, taxpayers. We need to be sure the parents are included in all critical decisions that affect our children's lives. And I would like to also say thank you for your service, Madam Chair, as a 48-year member of the American Legion Auxiliary. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, and first of all, Madam Chairman, thank you for your fairness. My name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom. We oppose SB 163 mandating insurance companies and taxpayers through Medicaid pay for gender dysphoria treatment and surgery. There are many hazards and concerns. In a discussion of the largest and most robust study on sex reassignment in 2016, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare during the Obama administration pointed out the study identified increased mortality and psychiatric hospitalization compared to the matched controls. The mortality was primarily due to completed suicide, some 19.1-fold increase. These results are tragic. The Obama administration noted that mortality from this patient population did not become apparent until after 10 years. In 2004, The Guardian commissioned research from Birmingham University, which looked at more than 100 follow-up studies of post-operative transsexuals. Researchers found no conclusive evidence that gender reassignment is beneficial for patients. The trials were often flawed. Potential complications of hormones and genital surgery, including deep vein thrombosis and incontinence, were also not always properly taken into account. In 2011, a study by the Karolinska Institute in Sweden examined the outcomes of more than 300 patients over 3 decades. Although 10 years after the surgery is when post-operative transsexual persons' mental health can begin to most rapidly deteriorate. Post-operative transsexuals also appear to be at a higher risk of killing themselves than comparable non-transgender peers. We do not want taxpayers to pay for this surgery through Medicaid. We appreciate your fairness in this hearing today.
Thank you, Ms. 2 minutes. So submit the rest of it in writing?
Yes, I just want to tell you that it's on there, on what I already submitted.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. And then we'll go down to Las Vegas. Thank you all for your understanding.
Madam Chair, my name is Mary Ann Humphrey. And I want to echo what the other 3 people had said. And also, I think it's unfair and uncaring to do these gender-affirming surgeries without a parental consent. If the parents are all on board with it, that's fine, but it should never be done without parental consent. These are our children, and this is something that shouldn't be done behind closed doors. And also too, I also agree that someone should be at least 18 to 21 years old, so they're on their own and they can make their own decisions. And I don't feel it's right that the insurance companies, which will trickle down to all of us, have to pay for this surgery. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go down to Las Vegas now.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Senator Spearman. Thank you for your service. I appreciate that and the service that you are providing today. I am not as much in opposition to SB 163.
Can you state your name, please? State your name, Ms. Bell.
Lisa Mayo, Lisa-Mayo. I'm here representing myself. I'm not as opposed with SB 163 in the spirit of what it's doing. I believe the insurance companies and so forth, are here to lobby for that decision. What I am here on is making sure that parents of a minor have the approval of a parent prior to this. Now, I know that Senator Scheibel mentioned NRS 129, and as I pull off Chapter 129, the title is Minors' Disabilities, Judicial Emancipation of Minors. And I've looked through all of the the various sections, and this isn't about a parent of a child that is 17 years or younger. This is about a minor disabilities, and the consent provision really isn't even applicable here. I don't see where this has anything to do with the bill, and I could be wrong. But I would like to request that first, NRS 129, if it is applicable, should be in the Legislative Council digest of the bill. It is not mentioned. And I believe that Section 2, line 26 should start with that before a child can be treated for any of this, whether it's psychological or anything, they must have the consent of a parent. And I'd like to add that I think that parental approval should be notarized and the parents should be involved. We can't continue to drive a wedge. The Nevada government cannot try to drive a wedge between parents and their children.
Thank you.
And
Thank
this
you.
is the
Thank
third
you.
bill
Thank
that
you.
I've been here
Ms.
on,
Mayo,
and it's a
Ms. Mayo,
continual thing.
Ms. Mayo, hello. Thank
Yes.
you. Yeah, 2 minutes. Two
Thank
minutes
you.
is up. Yeah, can you submit
Thank
the
you.
rest of it in writing? Thank you so much.
I will.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anyone else down at the table. BPS, let's go to the phones now.
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 163, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Wiz Razar, Deputy State Director with Americans for Prosperity, Chairwoman Spearman, and members of the committee, thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify in opposition to this bill. More so for us, from a fiscal perspective, we disagree that it should be taxpayers that should be burdened with this responsibility. There is a distinct difference between terminal illness and rare disease in comparison to dysphoria. This bill opens up Pandora's box for many, many other more cosmetic medical procedures in which the taxpayer should be burdened with. So we urge you to vote no on this bill, and we greatly appreciate your time on this matter. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Partee, Lisa, P as in Paul, AR, T as in Tom, EE. I think people who need surgery should do what the rest of the population does, and that's to work hard to earn the money to get the surgeries that they desire. Many of us have been denied surgeries by insurance that are medically necessary or that they deem cosmetic for disfiguring conditions. Mental health treatment is typically covered by most insurances. My sympathies go out to these folks, but the taxpayers should not shoulder their treatments. People for centuries have managed to obtain their goals, whether medical, educational, in the workplace, et cetera, through their hard work. All Americans have this opportunity. It's much more satisfying to obtain goals this way, and it boosts mental health and confidence. All of the emotional ups and downs are expected, and it's a part of life's processes. These allow for serious considerations and decision-making to make the choices that we make. I don't think anyone under the age of 24 should be encouraged or allowed to undergo this extreme treatment. I don't believe that they're fully capable of making these decisions as their brains have not been formed completely yet. To the gentleman who testified that went under successful treatment for himself, I congratulate him on his successes. People have been doing this for decades, but I don't think that an easy fix is the answer on the backs of the taxpayers and insurance companies. I thank you for your testimony and thank you for your service, Chair Spearman.
Thank you. BPS, we have anyone else on the phones?
Good morning, committee and Chair Spearman. For the record, Jim DeGraffenreid, D-E-G-R-A-F-F-E-N-R-E-I-D. I'm Nevada's Republican National Committee man on behalf of the Nevada Republican Party. Please vote no on Senate Bill 163. The 2010 Affordable Care Act roughly quadrupled health insurance premiums, primarily through elimination of medical underwriting and by forcing consumers to purchase coverage they'll never need. For example, the Affordable Care Act famously requires maternity coverage even for policies sold to men. As an insurance professional, I almost daily see firsthand the devastation caused by this. SB 163 continues this destructive path by forcing 100% of consumers to pay for coverage that only a small fraction of 1% of them will ever need. The fifth version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders estimates that up to 0.14% of males and 0.003% of females will be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Worse, SB 163 mandates that Medicaid will cover surgical treatment of gender dysphoria. There is no reason for Nevada taxpayers to pick up the tab for unproven treatments. However, the most disturbing feature of SB 163 is that it enables exploitation of minors by the medical and education industries. This bill enables children to attain permanent surgical procedures paid for by our tax dollars, and the language of the bill does not require parental notification. The only guidance needed for children to permanently alter their bodies comes from those who profit from the procedures. Although there is disagreement in the medical field about the benefits and dangers of gender reassignment as a treatment for gender dysphoria, if consenting adults want to opt for the treatments described in SB 163, that's their call. They have the maturity and ability to properly consider the risks and benefits. But it is unconscionable to encourage permanent mutilation of children. To do so is child abuse. Do you wish you had followed through on every idea that popped into your head at age 14? I'm sure glad I didn't, yet this bill lets children make permanent decisions with lifelong consequences. Please protect health insurance consumers, Nevada taxpayers, and vulnerable children. Vote no on SB 163. Thank you.
I don't see anyone at the table in Las Vegas. Anyone here in Carson City in opposition? Opposition? BPS, we have anyone else on the phones?
Yes, Chair, please stand by. Caller with the last three digits of 420, please press *6 now to unmute yourself. Thank you. Please continue.
My name is Lorena. I'm here in District 8, Senate District 8. Please stop. We're calling on our legislators to stop the madness. Stop butchering people who suffer from gender dysphoria on our dime. The man that spoke there in person was actually at a drag queen story hour. Please stop further promoting this ideology in our society by now forcing us to fund it. By not requiring parental consent, it is clear this bill can end up destroying the lives of many children. We're calling on you to please act responsibly. Stop forcing us to fund this. I ditto the other comments. If adults feel that they have to do this, then they can step up and do whatever they, as other citizens have to do, work hard and save up their money to fund their own surgeries that they choose that are elective surgeries. This is an ideology, and I really, really beg our legislators to stop this dangerous ideology from spreading even further. Thank you.
Ma'am, before you go, can you spell your last name, please? BPS, are they still there?
My last name? Yes, my last name is Cardenas, Cardenas.
Thank you. So now let's move to those who are... Okay. I think we have 6 more on the phone in opposition. BPS?
Correct, Chair.
Yes, my name is Leslie Quinn, Leslie, last name Quinn, Quinn, and I strongly oppose SB 163. In regard to Senator Scheibel, SB 163, although there are other laws currently available, doesn't make them right. This SB 163 is a harbinger to Pandora's box in other surgery and hacking of our young children. Even though this one includes parental rights, I believe more and more parental rights are being taken away daily within this legislature session as well. I think something that's considered medically necessary, a diagnosis like a hermaphrodite, that would be something definitely that would that an insurance company would want to pay for. As far as anything else, if you're an adult and you're, I believe, more 25 and up, and you've gone through proper mental health direction from an actual doctor, then yes, you know, that you can get your own surgery, but you should pay for that yourself. People have to pay for their surgeries always. I just am just very saddened by the encouragement to hack our children. Our children are going to be tomorrow's leaders. We don't want to do this. Please stop doing this to our children. They are going to be the people that are going to be leading our country in the future, and we don't want that. Thank you so much. Please oppose SB 163. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cyrus, C-Y-R-U-S. All I see this is a war against heterosexuality and the family. And there are some red flags to this. I was just wondering, why weren't these issues brought up 5 to 15 years ago? Why now all of a sudden? And I also see this as just a way to promote more identity, distract and divide the country. Other than that, I will yield my time. Ditto everybody's comments. Thank you.
Hi, I would just like to speak on this subject. This field of gender reassignment is a cash cow. A lot of people stand to make a lot of money, and they are making a huge amount on this. The field is growing. Only recently, as the last gentleman was stating, I feel like we polluted our society. This is not normal. We are men and women, and the fact that we are even discussing this shows that we have a problem in our society. I feel bad for all the tears that I've heard, and I know they're real, and I'm not taking that for granted. These are real people with real issues, but I feel it's misplaced, it's delusional. We've had our whole world history of men and women, and now we're trying to upset a very tenet of our society. We're born with vaginas or penises, and that is science. That is not sex. That's real. This is, in essence, really about elective surgery. You know, if somebody wants to do something, I'm not standing in the way, but I can't be expected to pay for it. That's going to change the structure of health insurance for my family. And what I can do for my family, what's available for my family, the cost, if you mandate this across the board, I'm going to pay for it. And I don't want to support this. I feel like this is a cancer. We're hurting ourselves. We're self-destructing. Other countries are laughing. They're laughing looking at our dialogue. I've been to other countries, and this is not what we discuss. I feel like I see kids suing. They've had these surgeries, and they're suing. They feel like their childhood was robbed, you know, and that's what we're allowing to have happen. I enjoy homeopathic medicine. But
Excuse me, hello, your 2 minutes is up. Can you do me a favor and spell your last name, please? Your 2 minutes is up. Spell your last name, please. Can you spell your last name? Okay, thank you. BPS, we have someone else?
Yes, we do, Chair. Stand by.
Hello, my name is Katie Banuelos, B-A-N-U-E-L-L-S, and I'm here representing the Libertarian Party of Nevada. We advocate for a free market in medicine and therefore oppose all coverage mandates, but our greater concern with this bill is the inclusion of coverage for minors. It is wildly unethical to treat a mental health disorder in a child by permanently modifying their body. Despite claims by activists and financially interested professionals, these treatments are not safe. Puberty blockers impact bone and brain development, cross-sex hormones can sterilize the user and destroy future sexual function, and the potential complications from the more complex surgeries are genuinely horrifying. An adult can consent to these treatments, but children are incapable of consenting to procedures of this magnitude. Parental rights derive from our responsibilities towards our children to protect them and act in their best interest. To disrupt the development of a child into an adult and to transform them into a lifelong medical patient is manifestly a violation of that duty. Dr. Stephan Levine is an expert in this area. He was actually part of the WPATH team that drafted the 5th Standards of Care, the 5th edition. He currently sits on the Cochrane Review Committee evaluating the totality of the literature on this subject. He states the body of evidence does not indicate that these treatments improve long-term outcomes or lower the risk of suicide for children and adolescents. While children with gender dysphoria do have suicidal thoughts at a higher rate, there is no evidence that they act on those feelings at a higher rate than other children. He also states that without these interventions, the vast majority of children will desist, meaning that their body discomfort will resolve and they will not identify as trans in adulthood. On the other hand, the evidence suggests that social transition and affirmative care sharply increase the rate of persistence. Almost all children who are given puberty blockers will later take hormones and have surgeries. Adults who identify as transgender do have a very high suicide rate, but this is not impacted by whether or not they were able to transition early. Pharmaceutical and surgical intervention for gender dysphoria in minors is not justifiable by the
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. Can you do me a favor? Your time is up. Submit the rest of your testimony. Thank you. Your time is up. Submit the rest of your testimony in writing. I made that request of everyone at the beginning of the hearing, so thank you. BPS, do we have someone else?
Hey, thank you, Ms. Spearman and Senate board members. My name is John Carlo, the young gentleman from Las Vegas. On March the 2nd, 2023, the ACLU reported Governor Bill Lee signed from the state of Tennessee, signed into law banning all forms of gender-affirming care. And also, in this matter, we need to think about what Tennessee just did, and we also need to consider the law of God from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And the Bible has existed for thousands of years. And also, this traditional view of male and females has been consistent for thousands of years. Psychologists in the past considered gender dysphoria as mental health. We need to think about how dangerous it is for youth, as they possibly might not be able to produce children for the rest of their lives. This goes against the founding principles of the United States and the Declaration of Independence, as it says, we believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As a country, we're underpopulated because of abortion, killing about 50 million children. We're greatly falling behind the rest of the world. And just thinking from a military perspective, we are not being able to compete with other countries because we're so underpopulated. And also, I would like to see more African Americans in America. That community is a low number, and I would like to see more African Americans into this country. But I would like to ditto.
Thank you. Your time is up.
everyone
Please
on
submit
here.
the rest of your testimony in writing. Thank you so much. And so we are now at about 25 minutes, and I've allowed 25 minutes, 24 minutes and 30 seconds for support, and 24 minutes and 35 seconds for opposition. So I tried to get it as even as I could. We'll go now to those who are in neutral, and thank you for those of you who did not have an opportunity to testify. Please submit your testimony in writing within 24 hours. And for those of you who I asked to spell your name and you left the conversation, then we will probably just have to say somebody said it. So if we ask you to spell your name, please spell your name. Otherwise, we cannot read a mind that's not there. So those who are in neutral, please come to the table here in Carson City or in Las Vegas or BPS if we have anyone on the phones. Neutral.
If you would like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 163, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Anyone in Las Vegas? Neutral? I don't see anyone at the table. Anyone here in Carson City? Neutral? Okay, we'll come back around, and 10 minutes support, 10 minutes opposition, 10 minutes neutral, and please remember this time we're going to go 1 minute each, 1 minute each. If you go over 1 minute, I'm going to cut you off. You can call me mean, but I'm trying to be fair. Anyone here in Carson City? We'll start down in Las Vegas. If you're in support, please come to the table, 1 minute each.
Good morning.
Go to Las Vegas first. Las Vegas, please begin. Please begin.
Hi, my name is Tony Sulzba, ToniSultzbaugh, and I am a 16-year-old trans man, and I have felt this way since I was 9 years old, and I started hurting myself when I was 9 years old. I have gashes on my thighs as deep as 1.5 inches because I could not get the health care I needed. I have had friends kill themselves because they could not get the health care they needed. I have friends who are still hurting themselves and trying to kill themselves. We need the health care we need, or else we will continue to die. America passing the laws to not give us our health care or the care we need is committing genocide on us. We need our care, or else we will all die. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Rook, E-R-I-N-R-O-O-K, and I'm here to testify in support as both an impacted individual and a subject matter expert. When I moved to Nevada last year, I was surprised to learn that Nevada does not already prohibit insurers from discriminating against transgender
Sir,
patients.
can you move a little closer to the mic? A little closer to the mic. Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that. So for the record, my name is Aaron Rook, E-R-I-N-R-O-O-K. I live in Senate District 3, and I'm here to testify in support as both an impacted individual and a subject matter expert. When I moved to Nevada last year, I was surprised to learn that Nevada does not already prohibit this type of discrimination. I had moved from Oregon, which has mandated trans-inclusive coverage since 2012, 1 year before I began my own transition. But this isn't the case in Nevada. In fact, 1 in 4 trans Nevadans reported difficulties with insurance coverage. Without coverage, folks have to pay out of pocket. Unfortunately, almost half of trans Nevadans are living in poverty, so that's just not realistic. Even when it's covered by insurance, accessing gender-affirming care is notoriously difficult. Many providers are not properly trained or willing to provide that care, even though being trans is just as common as it is to have type 1 diabetes. Imagine if you couldn't find a provider for your diabetic child, or when you finally did, your insurance provider said they don't cover conditions related to blood sugar. Like 1 in 4 trans Americans, I've had to teach my doctors how to provide my own care. This led me to found the Central Oregon Trans Health Coalition and to develop and deliver trans-inclusive trainings to hundreds of healthcare providers around the region.
Hello, can you submit the rest of your testimony in writing? Okay, thank you so
Absolutely,
much.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Someone else sitting at the table?
Bada Taylor, B-A-D-A-T-A-Y-L-O-R. I am the parent and the spouse of trans women, and I am non-binary myself. In my life, this care would change. It would change a lot. My wife has to spend several hours every other week ripping hair out from her entire body because the laser and electrolysis is not covered by our insurance. It is absolutely medically necessary given the fact that without the hair removal, my wife suffers massive dysphoria, and it takes her from a thriving and joyous, wonderful co-parent and wonderful spouse to a depressed and incapable shell of what she truly is. The dysphoria is such a huge medical, impactful situation that our entire family
Thank
life
you,
gets
ma'am.
better
Can you
when
submit the rest of your
dysphoria wanes.
testimony in writing?
Yes, thank
you. Let's come back up here to Carson City. Thank you, and thank you all for your understanding.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Adler with SSGR, today representing the Nevada Advanced Practice Nurses Association. NAPNA is in support of SB 163 as we support access to patient-centered healthcare, and we also appreciate the conceptual amendment, Section 6, Sub 1, that adds APRNs as providers of gender-affirming care. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Dr. Tara Raines, Tara-Raines, and I'm a licensed psychologist here in Nevada and Director of Kids Count Initiatives at the Children's Advocacy Alliance. I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 163, providing insurance coverage for gender-affirming care. Allowing Nevadans who are seeking gender-affirming care to utilize their insurance benefits for this care is an investment in the well-being of our community. It is well documented that children and adolescents who are transgender, non-binary, and hold other diverse gender identities and orientations are at greater risk for dropout, suicidal thoughts, depression than their peers. These youth are also at higher risk for traumatic experiences, substance use, and being unhoused, resulting in bleak outcomes by adulthood. Gender-affirming care is vital to the well-being of these young people. By allowing them to utilize insurance to seek this life-saving care, you're reaffirming their humanity and improving their overall life trajectory. This bill is timely and will allow individuals who are often marginalized to pursue the care they need to create a greater sense of hope and belonging. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Andre Wade, Silver State Equality State Director, here to say that we are in support of SB 163. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brianna Escamilla. I'm here on behalf of Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains, and we are in support of SB 163 because we believe that all Nevadans deserve access to the health care they need to live healthy and happy lives. I submitted the rest of my testimony via email. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go down to Las Vegas and we'll come back to Carson City. If anyone else is here in support, please, there's two other chairs here. Las Vegas, support?
Hi, this is Sebastian Alcala, he, him. I'm the program manager for gender justice and a resident of Nevada for 24 years. Also a trans man 4 years into my transition. As a person prior to transition was very familiar with what it's like to live without access to stable care. And then going through my transition and facing the runaround, it's very blatant, the discrimination and the difference in care. There's not a single medical treatment that's alleviated by the treatment of it being delayed. There's no magical internal knowledge gained in the seconds between 17 and 18, and denying access to care puts people's lives on hold. We just had 2 years taken away from us, and for young people, that time has an irrevocable impact already. I don't believe my existence is up for debate, but I firmly believe that if the stigmas didn't exist and I had the privilege to know myself in youth, I would be better off today. I think when it comes to providing the care that leads young people to freely and boldly chase their joy, we have a responsibility to make sure that if we can,
Thank you.
that we do.
Submit the rest of your testimony in writing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Someone else at the table?
Good morning, Amy Dorsey, AMIEDORSEY. I'm a transgender woman. I'll keep it short. I recently applied for private health insurance in Las Vegas, and not one insurer covered estradiol for gender reassignment. Transgender care is essential to my health. Before transition, I was depressed to the point that I needed medication to stay happy and alive. Please do what you can to pass SB 163. Thank you.
Thank you. And to come back up here to Carson City.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Annette Magnus, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. I'm here today as an ally, but also as an employer of transgender staff members that rely on our health insurance for their medical needs. In December, when we renewed our health insurance, we were given a list of medical services that would no longer be covered by our health insurance. I called the insurance company to beg them to cover these medical necessities, and they told me no, even if I was willing to pay extra. We must be able to cover these life-saving medical care for our transgender family. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pause now, and I've got 4 people on the phone. BPS? Support? 4 people on the phone in support?
If you'd like to testify in support of SB 183, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Laura Deitch for the record. Dr. Laura Deitch, DEITSCH. On a daily basis, I see how gender-affirming care makes a difference in the lives of productive, valued community members, especially young people. Conversely, on a daily basis, I've also seen firsthand the harm done to these folks as they face obstacles, particularly kids, set in place by administrative and regulatory bodies in the spirit of keeping kids healthy. One long-term client experiences significant suicidal ideation and behaviors of self-harm, resulting in the need for stitches because she's repeatedly been denied gender-affirming care by her insurance companies, both Medicaid and private insurance. All I can do is watch her cry and support her and tell her that I'll support her and her dad in his fight. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor here in Las Vegas, and fully half of my practice is trans and non-binary and gender non-conforming folks. Please support SB 163. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one more on the phone and come back up here. And I think we've got like 3 minutes left. If you're on the phone and you're here and someone's already said what you want to say, state your name. Ditto is good. Okay, so one more on the phone. I'll come back up here to Carson City. BPS.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Haley Lindsley, HAILEYLINDSLEY, and I'm an organizer of Planned Parenthood Marmonte, and we urge you to support SB 163. Thank you for the time today.
Can you come back up here to Carson City?
Kent Irvin, KNTERVN, for the Nevada Alliance. We've advocated before the Public Employees Benefits Board that critical care decisions should be made between the patient and their doctor and their providers, and not by insurance company bureaucrats, and we support this bill.
Thank you. Then we'll go down to Las Vegas after this one. Have you testified before? Oh, okay.
Not today.
Not today. Okay. Okay.
All right. So good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your service, Chairman. My name is Jay Caffaretta, spelled C-A-F-F as in Frank, E-R-A-T-A, and I'm here to support 163. As a third-generation Nevadan, it's about time that we really support all of our Nevadans. So thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Down to Las Vegas.
Judy Bowen, B-O-W-E-N. I'm a post-op transsexual, and this year I am 79 years old, so I have a lot of history dealing with transgender. A gentleman spoke earlier about people who were post-ops having problems. My life just started after all of my surgery because I felt more sure of myself. I felt that I could do anything, and I felt more confident. I had no more feelings of killing myself or not progressing. And I've always been a community activist, so I got involved with creating programs in New York and some of the programs we created here. I fully support the bill, and there's a study that was being done at UNLV, and I really think that we need to contact Dr. Jason Flatt and get some of the studies that were done there. But Rob Phoenix and Cy earlier made statements about.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Can you submit the rest of your testimony in writing? Thank you.
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
Okay. We only have 1 minute left. If you're at the table, please, but you can say your name and say ditto, and we can get to you. But if not, we won't be able to get to anyone else. And I'm going to ask everyone who's down south, if you're in support, if you would stand. So 1 minute. Yes.
Joanne Very, that's V as in Victor, E-R-R-Y. And I am here on behalf of myself. I am a certified crisis advocate, and I am also a volunteer at the center here. And I can tell you firsthand that I see both sides of it, and the children and the people that are not allowed to get the surgeries, and the effect it has on not only their mental health, but their family's mental health. I see parents and I see loved ones that are besides themselves because they can't get the help that they need. And also they're afraid that their loved ones are going to kill themselves. So I'm in strong support of this, and please pass this bill.
Thank you. I'm going to ask everyone who is down south, if you are in support, will you stand, please? Down south and up here, if you're in support, stand, please. Okay. Is that everyone down south? Okay. Thank you. Let's go to opposition. 10 minutes for opposition. 10 minutes for opposition. Anyone here in Carson City in opposition? Anyone down south in opposition? Don't see anyone. Anyone on the phones? Opposition?
If you'd like to testify in opposition of SB 163, please press star nine now to take your place in the queue.
Okay, let's move now to those who are neutral. Anyone neutral here in, I'm sorry, someone on the phone?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, this is for opposing 163. Madam Chair and Committee, my name is Lydia Ruiz for the record. Our kids expect us to protect them. We're the adults in the situation. There are 0 long-term studies that show that puberty blockers can be stopped and started with no repercussions. Most of these chemicals are putting these children to be chemically castrated. These cross-sex hormones are irreversible. There are permanent side effects, and they cannot be reversed. It is very atrocious that some of the experts that came and spoke today were saying that they can be reversed. Hormones when you're 19 versus 29 is absolutely different. You cannot stop and start hormones. This bill actually opens up Pandora's box, like some other people said. Anyone that's like anorexic or has some sort of gender dysphoria can go in and start getting breast augmentation, hair removal, and liposuction, for a matter of fact.
Thank you.
If have
Please submit the rest of your
anorexia, because
testimony in
you have-
writing. BPS, do we have anyone else in opposition?
Public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Anyone in neutral here in Carson City? Seeing no one in neutral in Las Vegas? Seeing no one. Sponsor? Closing remarks, please. Let me see. Is there any other questions? Yeah, okay. Yes. Vice Chair Lang.
Senator Scheibel, I've heard lots of testimony today about parental consent, and I'm just wondering if you could clarify the parental consent for kids.
Yes, I would be happy to, and I am looking at my email because I think that LCB said it better than I could. NRS 129.010 establishes 18 years of age as the age of majority, and thus, a minor under 18 years of age cannot consent to the receipt of medical services unless the minor has been emancipated pursuant to NRS 129.080 inclusive, or some other exception applies. This bill does not provide for any additional exceptions, so a minor would need the consent of their parent to get any of this medical treatment.
Thank you. I think Senator Daly.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I can just follow up with the Senator. It's more of a technical question and an observation than anything.
Thank you. Anyone else? Senator Stone? No? No? I don't know if this was questions, but just some things that popped in my head as I listened. I agree. Someone mentioned something about protecting families and children, and I certainly agree. We have a very dark side of our history called slavery, where we separated children from their families, and in the early days of Jim Crow, families were also separated. There were people who went from door to door, making sure that there was no husband in the place, or either men, had to leave so that someone could get help. Oh, and then recently, I guess about 4 years ago or so, we saw the horrendous conditions that some children were in because their parents decided to leave from south of the border to come here, and they were undocumented, but they were put in cages. So I certainly agree that we need to be doing some more things to protect our children. There was some mention about government interfering with the family, and those decisions should be made on family. And that's one of the reasons I supported Senate Bill 131, which would preclude people from being prosecuted who came here for reproductive services. Someone also mentioned there are some side effects for some of the surgeries, et cetera. I have hearing loss because of my time in the service, and I was going without hearing aids for a long time until my doctor said, one of the side effects of going without hearing aids when you have hearing loss is dementia. So I got hearing aids because that's a normal process. Looking at some of the things about cosmetic surgery, whether or not it's necessary or not, within the last 20 years, we have learned that bariatric surgery is not cosmetic. It is indeed life-saving. And so there are several people who have had the surgery. I've had some people in my family who've had bariatric surgery. Not cosmetic, although many of them do look better, but it was life-saving. And so one of the things that I think is important that for me, as I listen to the testimony, a lot of this depends upon where you stand and what your life experience has been, and so and I respect that. One of the reasons why I was proud to serve our country is because I respect the rights of people to have differences of opinion, but we don't have to be aggressively or overly, I guess, impressionistic when we start talking about how we disagree or not with our services. So I'm reminded of something that Mae Jemison, who was an astronaut, said during a CSG meeting about 5 years ago. And she said, you know, perspective is a wonderful thing because once upon a time when women had breast cancer, when it was first being diagnosed about 40, 50 years ago, there was only one way to cure breast cancer, and that was a mastectomy. And then suddenly, about 30 years ago, they discovered prostate cancer, and so they had to come up with a different cure for prostate cancer. So a lot of this depends upon where you stand, but I appreciate everyone's input, and disagree or not, you have the right to your own opinion, and I certainly thank you all for exercising that right. And with that, Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Chair Spearman. Thank you, committee, for your engagement on this bill, for your excellent questions, and for listening to all of the testimony today. I think almost everybody had a chance to speak who was in support of the bill in Las Vegas and Carson City and on the phone, although I think we may have still missed a few individuals. And I only bring that up because I appreciate that you've all listened very carefully, and there are a couple of things that I do want to address that came up in the testimony, particularly in opposition, but just in general. And the first thing that I want to address is the cost factor. I am not sure why. Let me back up. It is true. There are lots of people in the United States today who have to crowdsource and save and scrimp and scrap and create a GoFundMe to receive the necessary medical care that they need for themselves and their family members, and that is an absolute travesty that we should not be promoting or encouraging. We should all share the goal of working towards a healthcare system that functions, where insurance companies do what they're supposed to do and pool the risk so that when somebody needs an expensive surgery, an expensive medication, some other expensive treatment, the insurance company is actually able to cover the cost of that treatment. And whether that treatment is for childhood leukemia, whether that treatment is for injuries sustained in a terrible car accident, or whether that treatment is for somebody's gender dysphoria, it should be covered by their medical insurance. I'm not sure where people are getting the idea that everybody has to work hard and pay out of pocket for surgeries, because that is not the case. In the current state of America, the way that the law is now, the way that our policy is written, certain people have to pay more for their health care coverage than other people. And the problem that we're addressing with SB 163 is insurance companies that are covering procedures for some people, but not for other people. And that is fundamentally unfair. Not only is it fundamentally unfair, but the consequences are dire. And part of the reason that I wanted to bring so many people in support today, and I wanted you all to hear their testimony and to listen as carefully as you did, is because I hope that you heard what I heard, which is that people are not a little bit uncomfortable or slightly inconvenienced. It's not like having a headache one day of the week or like having a stomachache after you eat something bad. People are truly suffering without gender-affirming care. Children and adults alike are experiencing high rates of suicidal ideation. They're unwilling to go out in public. They experience, I think we heard someone mention that they experience anxiety, something on the verge of panic attacks. And these are very serious conditions that nobody should have to live with for any reason. If we were talking about treating people who had post-traumatic stress disorder from an assault, an attack, a terrible accident, I don't think there would be any question that we want their insurance companies to cover their therapy for that, or to cover their surgery for that terrible accident or incident. The same is true for people who are experiencing gender dysphoria. It is a medical condition that requires medical attention. And when we don't give those people or provide the avenues for those people to acquire the treatment that they need, the consequences are severe. I also want to point out that we are already paying for these procedures. You heard from 2 different people today who have already sued employers in the state of Nevada and have won. Different agencies within the state of Nevada have already been taken to court, forced to pay for these procedures and additional damages and attorney's fees. So this is actually a cost-saving measure for the taxpayers of Nevada. By bringing the Nevada revised statutes into line with the case law to ensure that we get it right the first time and cover these procedures and treatments up front, we save the state money that will inevitably be spent fighting and losing lawsuits when we fail to treat transgender people and non-binary people the same way that we treat cisgender people and cover their medically necessary care. I'd also like to point out that when you buy into an insurance pool, you are always buying into the risk that other people are going to bear. I'd like to remind everybody listening that some of the things that another person within your insurance policy might be using their benefits for that you've paid in towards would include treatment for their erectile dysfunction, lung cancer after decades of smoking, and fertility treatments. If you think that you have the right to tell other people within your insurance pool that they shouldn't get the care that they, their doctors, their providers, their families believe that they need because you don't agree with it, then I guess you also expect to sit on a panel that determines who's allowed to get a pill for erectile dysfunction, which women are allowed to seek fertility treatment, and which cancer patients are actually deserving of chemotherapy based on how they were diagnosed, when they were diagnosed, or why they were diagnosed with cancer. If you don't agree with those 3 examples that I just gave you, then there is no foot to stand on to suggest that any single person paying into an insurance pool or paying their taxes like a good citizen has the right to tell another person who benefits from that same healthcare system which healthcare they are entitled to and which healthcare they are not. Because that is a decision that should be between an individual and their doctor. And that's what we do all the time on Commerce and Labor, is talk about getting insurance companies out of the doctor's room, out of the patient's conversations, and ensuring that individuals are in charge of their own destiny. And I strongly urge your support on SB 163 and invite my co-presenter, Brooke, to provide some additional closing comments.
Thank you. For the record, Brooke Maylath. And first I want to thank Senator Scheibel for being such an incredibly fierce advocate for this marginalized community. I've been presenting to these committees for 10 years. Over that period of time, the Nevada Legislature has supported transgender rights for that period, passing legislation to protect this community in 5 sessions and blocking passage of a harmful bill in another session. This bipartisan support has been described as the Nevada way. I look forward to the passage of this bill to continue the tradition of previous legislative sessions of bipartisan support and the support of the governor, proving that we do things the Nevada way. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 163, and we will open it up now for public comment. And remember, public comment does not relitigate the bill that we've heard already. Public comment is something completely different than the bills that we've heard or the bill we've heard today. I'd ask anyone who's here for public comment to take 1 minute. 1 minute BPS, that goes for those who are on the phone, and if it's over 1 minute, I have no problem saying you're out of time. So anyone here for public comment in Carson City, anyone, and I think I see someone at the table in Las Vegas. So let's go to Las Vegas first, and then we'll come here, and then we'll go to the phones. Public comment has nothing whatsoever to do with Senate Bill 163. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. I would like to ask that the Nevada Legislature look into reauthorizing the 2019 and 2021 HIV Modernization Task Force, because we still experience significant stigma and disengagement in care in that population. And we've made some tremendous work and some progress in the work we've done with the HIV Modernization Task Force. So I'd like to see how we can reauthorize that, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Frances Soltzbach. I'm a proud parent of a teen transgender son. You met him earlier. Please, please, please pass this law. My son is the future of Nevada.
Thank you, ma'am.
He's not
Thank you, ma'am.
isolated.
Thank you,
He's
ma'am.
not alone.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry. There's public comment, and we're not going to deal with. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate your son's courage, but we can't do that during public comment. Okay? So thank you so much. Thank you. If you have testimony, feel free to submit it, though, in writing. And anyone that's going to submit testimony, please submit your testimony within 24 hours. Anyone else in Las Vegas? BPS, anyone on the phones?
If you'd like to provide public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you, thank you. And once again, let me just explain, we are under a time crunch. We only have 120 days every 18 months. And so for those of you who did not get a chance to testify, chalk it up to the way the system is designed. And if we need more time, I would encourage you to encourage us to go to annual sessions. So thank you, everyone who was here, took the time to testify, whether you were doing it in person, on the phone, or submitted your testimony. I certainly do appreciate that. And with that, we will end this session of the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, and we will not have committee meeting on Friday, but we will be back bright and early at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. We are adjourned. I forgot to thank Mr. Megarejo for his service. He's a combat veteran.